Hi, darling. Look, there are a lot of reasons to put off meditation or put off your personal practice or really put off the inner work of really getting to know your own mind and your body and this being. Here's an insight that might motivate you to commit or recommit to meditation right now. So sometimes in the experience of being alive, it can feel like emotions can really overwhelm us and overtake us, and that we can really get stuck in them, and that they can last for a long time or turn into a mood that lasts a really long time. The more you get to know your mind and spend a lot of time in meditation and in any awareness practice, you begin to notice a different reality. You begin to notice that when something happens that triggers an emotional reaction, and this could be something internal or something in the external world, it could be a physical sensation, it could be words, it could be a situation, it could be so many things. When you really pay attention, the physiological reaction actually only lasts something like maybe 90 seconds. Hear me out. What makes it feel like it lasts longer is often not that it's actually lasting that long, but we're actually reigniting it, or we're causing it to recur by thinking about it, by telling stories in the mind, or it's really the mind that tells the stories that keep it perpetuating. And we have this experience of this emotion that we're really stuck in and that we're feeling for a really long time. I think with experience and observation, it's possible to notice that these emotions cannot persist without the fuel of thoughts. Our thoughts or our storytelling minds are really what fuel these emotional states and cause them to last a lot longer than they really need to be. Now, I tried to find research so that this claim would be science-backed, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Apparently, it's not such a hard and fast 90-second rule. They couldn't actually find research to really back up exactly a 90-second physiological experience. The truth is it probably varies person to person and from situation to different situation. But I do know from my own practice and other really dedicated practitioners and teachers that I've studied with, there does seem to be a lot of truth to this. Something happens in our lives and it activates a reaction in us, which is natural, a natural biological response to stimulus. And that is a physiological experience. So let's work with an example. Let's say that somebody says something to you that really hurts, you know. They say something, you hear the words, and that's the stimulus coming in. And you have a reaction to that. You might have a physiological, very embodied reaction. And it might mean that there's And this part we may not actually have much control over, right? There may be, a tightness that happens in the body, a gripping or a bracing. There may be heat rising in the body, especially if it's associated with anger or an emotion like anger. There might be change in posture, change in the quality of the breath, maybe shallow, quicker breath. And so when you think of it, these are biological responses to a threat. And this is very natural. And there's all sort of chemicals that flush through our system, probably to prepare us to respond to a threat. And then if you really pay attention and stay with emotion, or stay with the felt sense of the emotion, and you notice, again, instead of staying in the stories and the reactivity in the mind, but instead stay with the reactivity in the body, we can notice that, okay, there's sensation. I can notice this in the body. I can notice heat and tightness and anything else that there may be. And if we stay with it as an observer, as this compassionate witness, and just notice the sensation, eventually it passes. And now it might be 90 seconds, it might be less or more, but eventually it does pass. If we're able to really stay in the felt sense and not go into the stories, and that doesn't mean you try to stop thought, right? Because we know that stopping thought is not an effective strategy. But if you kind of let the thoughts dissipate as you're same thing, you notice the thoughts, you notice sensation in the body, you kind of let both play out without getting involved. Eventually it does pass, or it might change into something else. But the point is, it's possible to not perpetuate the storytelling, not stay in the thoughts so that the emotion gets reignited and prolonged. I want to add something about stories here. Stories can be subtle and the mind can be sneaky. Sometimes it's easy to recognize when there are thoughts playing through the mind like, oh, why does this always happen to me? And I can't believe they said that or they did that. Or any of the other common thoughts that might loop in our minds around worry and self-criticism. But sometimes it's a little bit harder to recognize. Sometimes we might think that there are no thoughts and that we're just in a mood. And this is why it can be really helpful to come into the body. We can notice if there's a heaviness, a different quality to our breath, notice our posture and maybe any tightness in our jaw or anywhere else. And so coming into the sensations in the body can help us notice when these sneaky thoughts are sort of playing in the background and again, fueling the mood or fueling the emotions. And when we notice, we have the freedom to release, and bonus, coming into sensation and resting awareness on sensation and the felt sense can actually be really grounding and regulating. Personal story. I very recently experienced this in such an interesting way. A wave of emotion came over me and I was actually crying. And it was, for some reason, I was very present in that moment. It was so interesting to notice emotion as big waves of energy sort of moving through my body, and notice the tears and the heat rising in my body, and notice sort of truly the waves of sobbing. But there was space. I was really observing it with a sense of curiosity, and there was this non-identifying with it. It was actually like not even a negative experience anymore. I didn't perceive it as a negative experience because I was really with it with curiosity and paying attention. And it was interesting and it moved through me and it subsided. And I didn't identify with it. I didn't take it personally, and I was just like, whoa, let it move through me. And it was, a matter of moments, and maybe it was a little longer than 90 seconds, but it really was very, very brief. And I was able to just move on. And so the beauty in that is in our well-being practice, we're not trying to not have any emotions ever and be perfect and be perfectly poised or anything like that. Feeling things is actually a beautiful part of the human experience, but we just don't want to be trapped in them. We don't want to be enslaved in them. We want to be free enough to feel and not let it overtake us and not let it take away from our enjoyment of the other parts of experience. And so our sophisticated storytelling minds are incredible, and it's really what sets us apart from the animals, and it helps us think ahead and plan and innovate and create art and do incredible things in the world. But also left unchecked, it can really bring us a lot of difficulty. So I think this is something that we can learn from animals. And you've probably witnessed this yourself, whether it's been an animal in the wild or a house pet. It's something happens, they react, and often they shake it out after, right? And so it's like, the physiological chemical reaction happens through their body, through their biology. But animals often don't stay in the storytelling mind. I don't even know if they have a storytelling mind. So there's not this whole retelling a story and ruminating and stewing in it. It's kind of like, okay, it happened. There's might even be a really strong instinctual reaction to it, and then move on. And they've sort of shaken it out and they've moved on, and they don't hold on to it. And so this is what I think is really possible for us. And the practice of meditation creates that muscle of paying attention and noticing with that spaciousness so that we can notice what's happening, but not be so wrapped up in it and not get so hooked in it. It reminds me of that great quote, "Thoughts make an excellent servant, but a terrible master." So with the practice of meditation, or whatever practice it is for you that brings this really sharp awareness and this ability to stay present throughout experiences and stay present even when we're activated, this is when we can really disentangle from the mind and the stories of the mind and free ourselves from staying in the loop of reactivity. And that is freedom. That is absolute freedom. And that's what allows us to be present through the difficulty and also all of the goodness and all of the bright experiences of life, which is, maybe why we're here. I think for once, maybe I have succeeded in making a truly short video. Let me know in the comments what your experience is. If you really, really pay attention, how long do those moments of reactivity last? And those emotions that flush through you, those waves of emotions that hit you, how long does that last? If you've never really paid attention before, pay attention and let me know, because I'm curious. I know for me, when I read about the 90-second rule, it truly rang true. And experientially, it really does feel that short for me. But let me know what it feels like for you. And thank you for listening to me gush about something that really makes me excited about the promise of meditation and why I love teaching it and sharing with you all. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I'll see you next time.